My daughter laughed the moment she spotted me at the auction. She was up near the front, polished in a beige blazer, her hand draped casually on her husband's arm. The laugh wasn't loud, but it carried sharp and clear, like a spoon clinking against an empty glass. "Say goodbye to your house," she murmured just for me, her voice low enough so no one else caught it. "Somebody else will be mowing your lawn from now on." I didn't answer. My eyes drifted across the room instead. The neat rows of folding chairs, the auctioneer's slicked back hair, the low hum of chatter, the faint scent of overbrewed coffee mixed with carpet cleaner. A man 2 seats down flipped through his glossy booklet, and there on the cover was a picture of my front porch. My porch. The one where I once rocked my granddaughter Lily as she giggled at the wind chimes. Lot number 7, the page read. 3-bedroom family home. Needs modernization. The bidding hadn't started yet. They never expected me to show up, much less to raise a paddle. I was supposed to stay home invisible like a story no one reads anymore. But I wasn't a story not yet finished. I was still breathing, and I was about to remind them just how I'd gotten here. That's not a short tale. It started 2 weeks earlier. I was folding laundry in the kitchen when I noticed an unfamiliar envelope slipped in among the grocery ads. No return address. I nearly tossed it, but the clean sharpness of the paper made me hesitate. Inside was a notice. A public estate auction. And there, in fine print, I found it, lot number 714 Windmere Lane. My address. I sank slowly into a chair, the page trembling in my hands. Surely a mistake. But no. My house. My name. And beneath it, in cold typewritten words. Sale authorized under power of attorney. I remembered when Karen first asked me to sign those papers. "Just for convenience," she'd said with that practiced warmth. "In case something happens, Mom. I could handle bills, medical things, nothing major." That was 2 winters ago, while I was still recovering from a bad fall. I didn't think twice. She was my daughter. Why wouldn't I trust her? Never once did I imagine she'd wield it like this. I called her right away, my voice tight. "Karen, I got something strange in the mail today." A pause. An auction listing, with my address on it. Silence. Then finally, "Oh, that," she said lightly, as if I'd brought up a dentist appointment. "I meant to talk to you. It's time, Mom. The house is too much. You can't keep up with it anymore." "It's my house," I told her. "I know," she replied. "But it's not safe. And honestly, it's an asset that could be doing something useful." The air left my lungs. "Useful for who?" She sighed, annoyed. "Don't make this harder. Meadow Hills will be lovely for you. Meals cooked, laundry handled, your own little garden. Everything you'll need." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "You already signed the power of attorney," she reminded me, her voice clipped now. And then final as a slammed door. "It's done." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I wandered the house room by room like a ghost rehearsing her haunting. My hand lingered on the piano Robert once played, on the lace lamp I carried home from Ohio in '72. This wasn't a burden. This was my life. The next morning I made 2 calls, one to a lawyer, the other to the bank. I didn't have millions tucked away, but I had enough. Enough to make my point. Which is how I ended up sitting in the 5th row, my best coat buttoned, my handbag resting firm by my side, while Karen smirked in her blazer and waited for me to disappear quietly. The auctioneer started with smaller lots. Number 1. Number 3. A few polite claps. Then came lot 7. A charming 3-bedroom home on Windmere Lane. Karen straightened, leaning forward, expecting anyone but me. The bidding opened. I raised my paddle, steady as a mountain. A ripple of confusion ran through the crowd. Karen's head snapped around, eyes wide. "Mother," she hissed, taking a step toward me. But I wasn't the same woman who once signed forms without reading them. I wasn't the easy mark anymore. I stayed silent, paddle still raised. It wasn't a grand house. No marble counters, no exclusive zip code. But it was mine. Robert and I bought it in '72, back when we believed the world was kind and forever was real. I was 25, he was 28. And all we had was a small savings account, shaky hands, and stubborn hope. The neighborhood was nothing fancy then. Just cracked sidewalks, screen doors that slammed in summer. But it had a wide porch fit for 2 rocking chairs and a big maple tree out front, and that was enough. Robert put up the mailbox himself. It leaned to the left for 10 years before I finally begged him to straighten it. It's charming, he joked, tapping it proudly. Like us. We raised Karen there. She was born one cold April morning, sunlight streaming through nursery curtains. I remember holding her on my chest thinking this is everything. Her first steps, right there in the hallway by the pantry. Her first tantrum, flat on the kitchen floor, raging over a broken crayon. Her first heartbreak on the porch, a boy pacing the yard while she buried her face in my sweater. That house saw it all. We patched the leaking roof in '84 with our own hands. Painted the living room bright yellow the year Robert lost his job, just to remind ourselves light still existed. Planted peas along the fence the spring my mother died because I needed something hopeful to stare at from the kitchen window. Karen left for college. Robert passed. And I stayed. I stayed because leaving felt like abandoning holy ground. It wasn't the bricks, it was the creaks in the stairs, the dent in the hallway wall where Robert once wrestled a bookshelf, the initials Karen carved into the porch rail when she thought I didn't notice. Over the years, realtors circled like vultures, cards in the mailbox, phone calls during supper, prime location, great potential. I turned them all down. I didn't want modern. I wanted the place where I taught Sunday school at the dining table, where I nursed Robert through his final winter, where I knew every shadow by heart. But Karen never understood. In her 20s she'd visit more often, kicking off her heels, drinking wine on the couch, talking about work. Then the visits shortened, then stopped. Calls dwindled to birthday texts, sometimes late. She said I was the stubborn one, unwilling to adapt. But I wasn't the one who changed. I'll never forget overhearing her 3 years ago on the phone. It's just old. Smells like dust and regret. I sat in the next room knitting, pretending not to hear. But I did. Still, I never expected this. To see my life glossy on auction brochures. To hear my home reduced to good bones, full renovation required. They couldn't see the bones like I did. They didn't know which floorboard moaned, or how to angle the back window for the July breeze, or the worn patch on the counter where Robert always leaned. When that auction notice came, I sat in the living room for hours just breathing, listening. The silence of the house that day wasn't the usual kind. It was tight, watchful, like it too had gotten the news and was waiting for me to decide. I touched the corner where Robert's chair once sat and whispered, "Don't worry. I'm not letting them take you." That night, I pulled out the folder labeled important. I hadn't touched it since Robert died. Inside was everything: deeds, insurance, the key to a safety deposit box, and the little ledger notebook I'd kept for decades. Every dollar saved, every loan given. And there on the last page was the truth. I had enough. Maybe not to beat a developer, but enough to make sure they'd see me, to say I was here. I built this. You don't erase me with a gavel. Karen wasn't always this way. I still remember her small hand in mine at preschool drop-off, her soft voice calling me mama. The secrets whispered under blankets about butterflies and monsters. That little girl is gone now, replaced by a woman with sharper lipstick and sharper eyes. The moment I knew she'd changed wasn't loud or dramatic. It was 5 years ago on a plain Tuesday. She came to help with bills. Robert had always handled insurance and paperwork, and after he died, the numbers blurred together. She sat at the table with her sleek laptop, fingers clacking, hardly looking up. "Mom," she said abruptly, "you should really think about selling." "Selling what?" I asked. "The house." I thought I misheard. She sighed. "It's too much. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a yard the size of a park. It's not safe, not efficient." That word, safe. She always cloaked herself in words like that. Safety, convenience, efficiency. But what she meant was control. I told her no. The house was fine. I had my rhythm. She gave me that tight look, the one that said, "Here we go again." My impossible mother. She closed her laptop without arguing. "We'll revisit this later," she said. And she did. Every holiday. Every call. Every awkward cafe lunch. She'd circle back, pressing about downsizing. Meadow Hills with its book club and heated floors. Concern at first. Then impatience. And always the requests. They started small. A little help with her car, then money for a down payment, then tutoring fees for Lily. Always just until next month. But nothing ever came back. And still I gave. Because that's what mothers do. We give until there's nothing left, until we're worn out bones, sitting politely on the sidelines, praying someone remembers we mattered once. When she slid those power of attorney papers in front of me, she made it sound like kindness. Just in case of emergency. You won't even have to think about it. I should have asked more questions. I should have asked someone else to look at those papers, but I didn't. I just signed them. I trusted her. That trust cracked the moment I found my own house listed in an auction catalog. When I called Jeanette, I didn't raise my voice and I didn't cry. But something must have shifted in my tone, because she acted like I was the one being unreasonable. Like I was standing in the way of progress. "Mom, you're being emotional. This is what's best for everyone," she said. And the word everyone rolled off her tongue as if it didn't include me. She didn't expect me to fight back. She figured I'd fold like always. Smile politely, stay quiet, and keep my hands busy with crocheting, while they dismantled my life piece by piece. But something old, stubborn, and fierce rose inside me that night. You don't get to erase me. I sat in the kitchen in the same chair David used to sit in, and I wrote out a list. Not a list of complaints, I could have filled pages with those, but a list of memories. Things Jeanette had forgotten or maybe chosen to forget. How she cried when her first boyfriend broke her heart, and I made her grilled cheese at midnight. How I stayed up all night sewing her comic costume for Halloween. How I drove 6 hours through a snowstorm when Lily was born, because Jeanette couldn't stand the thought of being alone. I wasn't just a name on a deed. I was the one who carried her through, who steadied her, who kept a roof over her head. Now to her I was nothing more than an asset. A week before the auction, I picked up the phone and called Lily. She's 23 now, living a few states away. She still sends me postcards with doodles in the corners and calls me Nana, like she did when she was little. She answered on the first ring. "Nana," she said, her voice light. I smiled. "Hi, sweetheart. You okay? You sound funny." I hesitated. "I just wanted to hear your voice." We chatted for about 15 minutes, about her job, her cat, the book she swore I'd love. She didn't know anything about the auction. I didn't tell her. Some betrayals weigh too heavy to pass down. After we hung up, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wouldn't just show up. I'd raise my paddle. Not because I thought I'd win, but to prove I was still here. To show them I wasn't going to disappear quietly. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how Jeanette kept convincing herself she hadn't done anything wrong. The morning after our phone call, when she told me with that calm finality that my house was already being sold, I opened the mailbox and found a thick envelope with her handwriting on the front. For review, it said. Inside were glossy brochures: Meadow Hills, Retirement Redefined, Riverview Terrace, Peaceful Living for Independent Adults, Pine Grove Village, Where Comfort Meets Care. I flipped through each one. Smiling gray-haired people playing board games, sipping tea on sunny patios, all looking like they'd never lost a thing in their lives. One brochure had a floor plan for a studio apartment barely bigger than my laundry room. A kitchenette, a twin bed shoved in the corner, no dining room, no porch, no room for the grandfather clock David's father had built, no wall long enough to hang the family quilt. On the back page, someone had circled a line in blue pen: private garden boxes available upon request. A box. Not a yard. Not a tree. Just a box. I laid the brochures side by side on the counter, studied them for a long moment, then folded them neatly and dropped them into the trash. Later that day, Jeanette called again. "I just want to make sure you looked at those options," she said in the same tone you'd use to remind someone to order dessert at a restaurant. "I did," I told her. "And they're not for me." She let out that heavy sigh of hers, the kind that's supposed to sound patient but really just means she's irritated. "Mom, we've been over this." "No," I said steady. "You decided. We didn't discuss anything." She went quiet. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I almost laughed. Instead, I sipped my tea. "No, Jeanette. You are." She hung up soon after, claiming she had a meeting. Promised we'd talk later. But I knew we wouldn't. That night I didn't sleep. My head throbbed like my skull was too small for my thoughts. I paced. I touched the arm of David's old chair, ran my fingers across the dusty piano keys, sat at the kitchen table until the sunlight finally spilled through the curtains, turning the dust in the air into golden flecks. At 8:01 sharp I dialed a lawyer. His name was Philip Gordon, early 40s, kind eyes, a wedding ring he twisted when he was nervous. A friend from church, Mary Claus, had recommended him after he helped her set up a trust. I told him everything. The power of attorney, the auction, the brochures, my daughter. He listened carefully, taking notes, raising an eyebrow here and there, but never interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back. Mrs. Morgan, I'll be blunt. This isn't rare. But it is wrong. Depending on the power of attorney's wording, we may have options. Can I stop the sale? I asked. Possibly, he said. But we'll have to act quickly. Once the property goes through public auction, undoing it gets harder. What if I just buy it back myself? He looked surprised, then smiled. You could. That would certainly send a message. I nodded. I want to send one. He explained what I'd need to do, the bank paperwork, revoking the power of attorney, setting legal protections in place. He didn't talk down to me. He didn't question my judgment. He treated me like a client, like a person. More respect than my own daughter had shown in years. After we finished, I went straight to the bank. Michelle, the branch manager, greeted me warmly. She's a tough woman in her 50s, always in a blazer, always remembering people's birthdays. She led me into her glass-walled office. Do you want me to freeze the account access under your daughter's name? She asked. Yes. And redirect all notifications to you? Yes. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Done. That was it. No drama. No thunder. Just a quiet moment where someone finally said to me, no more. I walked out into the afternoon sun taller than I'd gone in. Not stronger yet, but steadier, like my spine remembered how to hold me up. That night, I opened the blue leather notebook David had given me on my 60th birthday. I used to fill it with memories, little things like Lily's first grandma, or how David always slipped his hand into mine under the dinner table. I turned to a blank page and wrote, September 10th. Today I stopped being afraid. Today I said no. And tomorrow I will go to the auction. It was Lily who told me the exact time and place. She called the night before, chattering about her apartment, her odd neighbor who blasted jazz at 2 in the morning. Then she mentioned casually, oh, Mom said she's taking tomorrow off for something important. Some kind of signing, I think. She was vague. Said something about the courthouse. That was enough. Jeanette hadn't told Lily the truth, and for that, I was almost grateful. After we hung up, I sat at the dining table for a long time in the silence. My tea had gone cold. Outside, the street lamp flickered the way it always did after midnight. I pictured Jeanette in her blazer, signing away my house like it was just another form, laughing with Rob about how I'd adjust. But I wouldn't. Not anymore. At 7 the next morning, I dressed carefully. Navy blue dress with the small pearl buttons. The one I wore to David's retirement dinner. The one I wore when Jeanette won her science fair. I pinned up my hair, dabbed on lipstick, not for them, for me. I packed a folder with bank papers, ID, a letter from Philip just in case. I wasn't going there to cause a scene. I was going to stand in my truth. The auction hall was in the old municipal building on Ashbury Street. I hadn't set foot there since Lily's high school graduation. It looked smaller now. Rows of folding chairs. A podium at the front. A projector screen glowing faintly with the words Riverville Estate Sale. 11 a.m. I walked in, heart steady, and saw her. Jeanette, second row, tablet in one hand, phone in the other. Rob next to her, flipping through a catalog. They were whispering, smiling, confident, sure of themselves. She didn't notice me at first. I found a seat in the 5th row, set my folder on my lap, crossed my ankles and waited. More people trickled in. A few men in suits had shuffled in by then, their faces blank and wallets heavy. In the back I spotted a couple who looked like flippers, cheap shoes, eyes darting like they were already measuring walls in their heads. An older man sat near the aisle with a notepad, a real estate badge clipped neatly to his shirt pocket. The room hummed with low chatter until the auctioneer stepped forward. Good morning, folks. We'll begin shortly. Make sure you've registered and picked up your paddles. I held mine in both hands. Tight, steady. The room stilled. And then Jeanette turned. Her eyes landed on me, and for a split second I saw something flicker. Like she didn't quite believe I was real. Then her expression shifted. Not panic, not yet. But there was a tension in her mouth, a quick tightening at the edges. She leaned toward Rob, whispered something sharp, and he turned too. His frown was immediate. I didn't move. I sat there tall and calm, letting her feel it, letting her wonder, letting her sweat, letting her know she was seen. There's a particular silence that hangs in the air before an auction starts. Not reverent, not nervous. It's calculation. People size each other up, measuring wallets, strategies, and nerves. I'd never sat in a room like that before, but the energy was familiar. I'd felt it at PTA meetings years ago, when Jeanette was in middle school. Mothers in cardigans and lipstick, posturing with polite smiles, each pretending they weren't competing while they did exactly that. The auctioneer, a man in his 60s with an artificial orange tan, cleared his throat into the microphone. Let's get started. Lot number 1. My house was lot number 7. I listened. Not to the properties but to the people. A man in the second row always started the bidding. A woman in the third row always followed. The flippers in the back never raised their paddles, just scribbled furiously in their notebooks. Jeanette stayed still. For 6 lots, she didn't raise her paddle once. She wasn't here for bargains or investments. She was here for one thing only. When the auctioneer finally announced lot number 7, the room shifted. A collective breath held. Next up, lot 7, he said. 3-bedroom, 2-bath on Windmere Lane. Strongbones, prime neighborhood. Cleared for expedited transfer. Shall we start at 120,000? Jeanette's hand shot up immediately. Paddle raised. Number 103. 125, the auctioneer asked. Another paddle rose behind me. Jeanette's head turned sharply. She hadn't expected competition. Thank you, the auctioneer said. 130. A pause. And then I raised my paddle. Not fast. Not timid. Steady. Deliberate. The room shifted again. Not a gasp, life isn't a soap opera. But the ripple was there. Heads turned. Jeanette's face snapped toward me. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, like she thought she was misreading what she saw. Paddle 117, the auctioneer said. 135. Do I hear 140? Jeanette raised hers again. 140. I lifted mine. 145. Now there were murmurs. Whispers passed between rows. I didn't care. I wasn't bidding to win. I was bidding because it was mine. Because I wasn't invisible. Jeanette leaned to Rob, her whisper sharp enough I could almost hear it. He shook his head. She faced forward again, paddle in hand. 150 to number 103, the auctioneer called. Do I hear 155? I waited. I let the silence stretch. 150 going once. I raised my paddle. 155. Color crept up Jeanette's neck. Her paddle rose again. 160. The auctioneer chuckled. Now we have ourselves a contest. 165, I said calmly, hand steady, voice unshaken. Jeanette shot up from her seat, the only person standing in the room. Excuse me, she said loudly. I need a word with the auctioneer. He blinked at her. Ma'am, we're in the middle of bidding. I understand, she said tightly, pointing at me. But that woman, she's my mother. She doesn't have the right. I rose slowly, my voice even but cutting clean through the air. Actually, I do. From my bag I drew out the folder. The legal revocation of power of attorney. Signed, notarized, filed with the county clerk 3 days earlier. Attached to the title. The auctioneer stepped down, took the papers, scanned them. His expression shifted. This changes things, he said quietly. Jeanette froze. Her mouth opened then snapped shut. Her face was a storm, disbelief, fury, panic. Mom, she hissed. What are you doing? Something I should have done a long time ago, I said. The room was silent, heavy. No applause. No music. Just stillness. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Given this new information, we'll pause the sale of Lot 7. Recess for verification. Chairs scraped back. People stood, whispering. Some stared at me, others at Jeanette. Rob looked like he wished the floor would swallow him whole. I sat back down, calm. I wasn't there to perform. I was there to take my life back. And, as I knew she would, Jeanette followed me into the hallway during recess. The building smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper. Her heels struck sharp against the floor behind me. "Mom," she snapped. "What the hell are you doing?" I turned. She stood 10 feet away. Arms crossed, chin lifted like she was trying to look taller. "I'm stopping you," I said. "Stopping me from what?" "From stealing my house." She scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "No," I replied. "You are. You just didn't think I'd notice." Her mouth opened, but I raised a hand. "Don't. Not now. I gave you years to speak honestly. Now it's your turn to listen." She hesitated, then doubled down. "You don't know what you're doing. You're letting emotions get in the way of what's smart." "No," I said again, softer. "I'm finally letting my emotions speak." Her eyes rolled. "It's not about convenience." "Isn't it? Then what were those brochures you mailed me?" "Meadow Hills. Pine Grove." Little boxes painted to look like homes. Color rose in her cheeks. "You need care." "I need honesty," I said. "And respect." She looked around, wary of who might be watching. Then she stepped closer, voice low and sharp. "This is embarrassing. You showing up here. Making a scene." "I haven't raised my voice once," I told her. "You're embarrassed because for the first time in years, you can't control the story." She flinched. "I never meant to hurt you," she muttered. "But you did," I answered. Her eyes met mine then. For a fleeting second, I saw the girl she used to be, the child clutching my hand in the dark after her first nightmare. Small. Scared. "I thought you'd be relieved," she whispered. "I thought you didn't care. That the house was too much." "You never asked," I said. "You decided." Her silence was answer enough. "You saw numbers, square footage, yard size." I went on. "You didn't see me." "That's not fair," she said. "No," I told her. "It isn't." She rubbed the bridge of her nose, sighing. "So what now?" "Now," I said. "You sit there and watch as I buy back the house you tried to sell out from under me." "You're really doing this?" "Yes." "You don't even need that house anymore." "It's not about need. It's about choice. About dignity." Her jaw tightened. "You'd spend your savings just to make a point?" "I'd rather not have to," I said softly. "I'd rather my daughter saw me as a person, not a transaction. But here we are." The silence between us was long, aching. "You're being spiteful," she finally said. "And you're being small," I answered. Her eyes blinked quickly. "If I am spiteful," I added. "I learned it from years of swallowing silence." Her face tightened, eyes wet with something, anger, fear, shame. I didn't push. We just stood there, two women bound by blood and disappointment, the hallway thick with years we couldn't rewrite. "I have to get back inside," I said at last. "I'll contest it," she shot back. Half a threat, half a plea. "You can try," I replied, calm. "But you won't win." Then I walked past her, her perfume trailing after me. Familiar, distant, like something that once belonged but no longer fit. For a moment I thought she might reach out, maybe touch my sleeve, maybe say something real. But she didn't. Back inside, the auctioneer stood at the front, shuffling through his notes, murmuring into his headset. The air was buzzing with low, restless energy. Rob sat in the front row, hunched forward, his shoulders tight, frown etched deep like he wanted to vanish into his chair. I slipped quietly back into my seat, the folder resting neat and heavy in my lap. When the auctioneer lifted his eyes, he found mine. He gave the smallest nod, then cleared his throat. "Lot 7, he said, his voice steady again. "The sale is postponed, pending legal review of ownership. At this time, the property is no longer available for bidding." A wave of frustration rippled through the room. One man groaned. Another stood and walked out muttering under his breath. Someone else whispered, "Knew this would get messy." I stayed still. Completely still. It was done. Not a victory parade, not a grand triumph. But it was stopped. That was enough for today. The auction wound down half an hour later. No one spoke to me as they filed out, but I could feel the glances brushing past. Some curious, some cautious, some faintly pitying. I didn't mind. I wasn't there for them. Jeanette never returned. I saw Rob leave alone, his phone pressed to his ear, his shoulders drawn tight like a man trying to walk out of his own skin. I could imagine the call, clipped and sharp. A conversation full of blame and corners. I didn't envy him. I didn't hate him either. He was just another man who believed the path of least resistance was the wise one. Plenty of people convinced themselves of that. When the room finally emptied, I stayed. Not to rest exactly, but to sit with the weight of what had just happened, to actually feel it instead of just surviving it. The auctioneer walked over, clipboard tucked under one arm. "Mrs. Morgan," he said gently. "Miss," I corrected. "I never changed it." He smiled a little. "Miss Morgan, then. I've gone over the paperwork with our legal consultant. Everything checks out. The revocation is valid. Without a power of attorney in place, your house cannot be sold without your consent." "I know," I said. He nodded slowly. "I imagine this hasn't been an easy day." "No," I told him. "But it was a necessary one." He studied me a moment, then shook his head. "I've seen a lot of families come through here. Most don't fight. They just sign, nod, move along. What you did today, it mattered." I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. He gave me a quiet nod and walked away. I stayed a while longer, my hands resting on the folder. I had won something, though it didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing alone in a room that had once been crowded, realizing how much space silence can take up once it's finally yours. When I stepped outside, the sun had shifted. The light had softened into that golden late afternoon glow, slipping through the sycamores along Ashbury Street. I walked slowly toward the lot. And there she was, Jeanette, leaning against her car, arms folded, sunglasses perched on her head like she'd forgotten they were there. She didn't look furious anymore. She looked tired. "Done?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I thought you might slip out the side door. I don't use side exits anymore." That pulled the faintest twitch from her mouth. Not quite a smile, but close. "I didn't think you'd actually show up," she admitted. "That was the plan, wasn't it? Count on me," fading quietly. She didn't argue. "I told myself I was helping," she said after a pause. "Doing the responsible thing. Planning ahead." "You were planning for your own convenience." "Maybe," she said. "But I also thought you wouldn't fight. That maybe you'd even feel relieved." I looked at her, really looked. "You stopped asking me what I wanted a long time ago." Her face tightened. "You stopped telling me." That caught me. I hadn't expected it. And for a second, I didn't see a woman trying to erase me from my own home. I saw my daughter. A child still searching for answers, still waiting for something soft. "Maybe we both forgot how to talk," I said quietly. Jeanette's eyes drifted away. "It's easier to make decisions if you pretend the other person won't argue. Easier to pretend love is protection, even when it's control." She nodded slowly. "So what now?" "I go home," I said. "And you decide what kind of daughter you want to be next." She flinched but didn't move. "I'm not asking for money," I added. "Not for visits. Not even for apologies. I just want you to stop managing me." She sighed. "You always made it so easy to step in." "That's what mothers do," I said. "Until one day they can't. Or won't." We stood in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Finally, she stepped aside. "Let me know when you get home." "Why?" I asked. "So I know you're safe." It wasn't enough, but it was something. I nodded once, climbed into my car, and drove away. The gate at home squeaked like it always had, that tiny scrape of metal on metal that no one else noticed but me. The porch moaned. The old clock ticked out of rhythm. The wind teased its way through the upstairs window. Every sound greeted me like a familiar language. When I shut the door behind me, I realized how tightly I'd been bracing. My shoulders eased. My breath came out long and slow. The living room looked the same, but I didn't. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a waiting room for decline. Felt like mine again. I put on the kettle. The late sun spilled amber across the kitchen tiles. A spiderweb hung quiet in the pantry corner. I smiled. Maybe tomorrow I'd clean it. Or maybe not. The choice was mine now. Later, I spread out the papers from the folder like a quiet ritual. The revoked power of attorney. The new protections. The revised will. David's name still echoed there in the old version. Everything to Jeanette, Lily barely mentioned. Not anymore. Now the house was Lily's. Not out of revenge, but because she still called, still sent postcards, still said, "I love you." without asking for anything in return. She saw me. That was enough. I tucked the folder away, locked the desk, and picked up the phone. Lily answered on the second ring. "Nana, you okay?" "I am," I said, smiling. "I just got home." "Was it awful?" "It was necessary." She paused, lowered her voice. "Mom's not talking." She came home, slammed the door, went upstairs. Rob looked like he wanted to disappear. "I'm not surprised," I said. "I don't know what happened," Lily went on. "But it shook her. I can tell." "It should," I said gently. "She didn't tell me anything," Lily admitted. "She tried to sell the house, Lily, without asking me." Silence. Then, "Oh my God. She thought I'd accept it. That I'd stay quiet." "What did you do?" "I showed up." Another pause. "Nana, you are such a badass." I laughed loud and free. "That's not the word I'd use." "It's the one I'm using," she said firmly. "Seriously, I'm proud of you." I had to swallow against the quiet that followed, because I couldn't remember the last time anyone said that to me. "Thank you," I whispered. "Can I come over this weekend?" "Please do. I'll bring pie." "You always say that." "This time I mean it." When we hung up, the sky was turning dusky rose. The maple out front swayed in the evening breeze. The house was mine again. And so was I. I hadn't laughed like that in weeks. As Lily and I cleared the table, I noticed her glance toward the window. "Is someone coming?" I asked. She hesitated. "Mom texted me this morning. Said she might stop by." The stillness in the room shifted. Not exactly tension, just the weight of possibility. "I didn't invite her," Lily added quickly. "But I didn't tell her not to come either." I nodded, and then, as if on cue, the doorbell rang. We stood there in the kitchen, quiet. I looked at Lily. She looked at me. "You don't have to open it," she whispered. But my feet were already moving. Jeanette stood on the porch, coat buttoned, her hair pulled back, a white envelope clutched in her hand. "I won't stay," she said right away. I had to give this to you in person." I didn't speak. I just looked at her. She held the envelope out. "It's the final signature for the trust transfer. My lawyer signed off. And I canceled the secondary access. I shouldn't have been on your accounts." "No," I said. "You shouldn't have." She nodded, her eyes fixed on something behind me. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I want you to know I'm trying." Trying. Not fixing. Not begging. Just trying. I stepped back. "You can come in," I said quietly. "But only as a guest." Jeanette hesitated, then crossed the threshold. She didn't ask where to sit. She didn't touch a thing. She moved like someone entering sacred ground she wasn't sure she deserved to walk. Lily joined us in the living room, handed her a cup of tea without a word. And for the first time in years, the three of us sat together. Not as a picture-perfect family. Not as mother, daughter, granddaughter in assigned roles. Just women, each carrying her own scars, her own choices, her own grief. It wasn't reconciliation. It was something smaller, quieter. A fragile beginning. Saturday came again, rain tapping gently on the roof. Lily arrived just past noon, arms full of grocery bags. A smile too wide for someone who'd just driven 2 hours in the drizzle. The house filled with the smell of cinnamon and wet pavement as she stepped inside. "Don't panic," she said, grinning. "I brought pie. And this time I actually made it." "Then we'll both be surprised how it tastes," I teased. She laughed, kicked off her boots, and hugged me. Warm, real, a little longer than usual. I felt it in that hug, the worry she'd carried all week, the relief of simply showing up. We moved through the kitchen in rhythm like always. She set the pie down. I poured the tea. Neither of us said Jeanette's name. Not at first. But over plates and napkins, Lily looked at me and said, "She told me a little." I nodded. "She didn't defend it," Lily added. "She just said you'd made your position very clear." I did. She looked shaken. She should be. We ate quietly for a while. The pie was good. Flaky crust, not too sweet. Better than I expected. When Lily caught me nodding, she grinned. "See," she said. "I'm evolving." "I'm proud of you," I told her. And I meant it. She leaned back, tea in hand. "You changed your will." I did. You don't have to explain. I want to. It's not because I love you more. It's because you show up. Because you see me. Because I want this house to stay with someone who understands what it means. Her throat tightened. She didn't cry, but her eyes softened. I'll take care of it, Nana. When the time comes. I know. We cleared the table together the way we always had. She dried dishes, I wiped counters. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle soft as breath. And then the doorbell rang. Lily froze. I didn't invite her, she said quickly. She just said she might stop by. I nodded, walked to the door and opened it. Jeanette stood there, coat damp at the shoulders, envelope in hand. I won't stay, she said. I just came to give you this. Inside was a single page, her signature finalizing the trust. I also removed myself from all account access, she added. You won't need to chase that down. Good, I said. She hesitated. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. But I'm trying. I studied her face, the tightness, the flicker of shame behind her eyes. You can come in, I said. But only as a guest. She nodded. And for the first time in years she crossed my threshold not as someone with demands, but as someone who finally understood the weight of the door she once tried to close behind me. Jeanette didn't stay long. She perched on the edge of an armchair, her hands folded too carefully in her lap, like she didn't know what to do with them in this house anymore. She accepted a cup of tea from Lily with a quiet thank you. Her eyes traveled around the room, the mantel, the quilt, the photos. She lingered on one of David holding Lily as a toddler. Both of them caught mid-laugh. This place hasn't changed, she said softly. It didn't need to, I answered. She looked at me, not sharp, not defensive. Just looked. I used to think that meant you were stuck. That you were afraid to move forward. But maybe I didn't want to see what you were holding together here. Because if I saw it, I'd have to admit I was letting go too quickly. Lily stayed quiet, knowing better than to break the moment. I don't expect forgiveness, Jeanette whispered. I'm not offering it, I replied. Not today. She nodded. Fair. But she didn't leave. She stayed, awkward and still, as if waiting for something neither of us could name. I thought of all the years I'd bitten my tongue, made myself small, swallowed silence to avoid her disappointment. I thought of birthdays where she came late, holidays where her smile was thin, and I thought of the time she clung to my arm as a child in crowded stores, the nights she cried at college drop-off. We weren't just mother and daughter. We were a long string of choices, some tender, some careless. I never wanted the house, she said suddenly. Not really. I think I just wanted control. Because you always felt out of reach. Because I stopped letting you run my life, I said. She looked down. I was afraid of becoming you. Afraid of staying in one place and watching everything else move on. You were afraid of staying, I told her. And I was afraid of leaving. We built opposite lives. And now? Now I'm not afraid. She blinked at that, then looked away. I don't know what to do with the space between us. You don't have to do anything with it, I said. You just have to stop pretending it's not there. Silence filled the room again. Not angry. Not sad. Just full. At last she stood. I'm going to go. But I'd like to come back. Not to manage. Just to visit. If that's allowed. It is, I said. On my terms. She didn't argue. Lily walked her to the door. I didn't follow. I just listened to the quiet sound of goodbye. When Lily came back, she carried the untouched teacup. She rinsed it without a word. Do you think she'll mean it? She asked. I think she's trying, I said. That doesn't fix it. No. But it's a beginning. The next few weeks settled into rhythm. Quiet mornings at the library. Afternoons in the yard, coaxing beauty out of wild soil. Sundays baking bread again, something I hadn't done since David passed. Lily visited often. Arms full of stories, laughter, sometimes laundry. We didn't talk much about Jeanette. That wasn't her burden to carry. But one evening as we sat on the porch with tea, Lily asked, Do you miss her? I miss what I thought we could have been, I said. But I don't miss being managed. Do you think she'll ever change? She already has, I answered. Just not in all the ways I hoped. And that's okay. She nodded, thoughtful. She told me once she was afraid of becoming you. But I think she's even more afraid of ending up alone. She's not alone, I said. Not if she learns to be honest. That night, I sat at the piano for the first time in years. My fingers found an old melody, hesitant at first, then steady. David used to hum it without realizing. I played until the sky shifted from amber to blue to black. The house was quiet again. But not empty. Never empty. For the first time in a long time, I thought less about what might be taken from me and more about what I still had. And that, I realized, was enough.